Sarah Jane pressed her daughter's face against her chest and felt the child stop shivering. That terrified her more than the cold.
"Lily,"
she whispered, shaking her.
"Lily, stay with me. Please, baby. Please."
No answer. Just shallow breathing. Just a 5-year-old body giving up in a Texas blizzard because her mother had failed her. Sarah had been running for 14 months. Tonight, the running would end one way or another. Then she heard hoofbeats through the storm. Stay with me until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The bread ran out 4 days ago. Sarah remembered the exact moment Lily's small hand reaching into the canvas sack, finding nothing but crumbs, looking up at her mother with eyes too old for a 5-year-old face. "It's all right, Mama," Lily had said. "I ain't that hungry anyway." The lie broke something in Sarah's chest. Now, they huddled against a broken wagon wheel in the middle of nowhere, Texas, while a February blizzard tried to kill them. The tarp she'd stretched overhead snapped and cracked in the wind. Wouldn't hold much longer. Nothing was holding much longer. Lily. Sarah pulled her daughter closer, trying to share warmth she didn't have. "Talk to me, baby. Tell me about the horses. You remember the horses?" Lily's voice came weak, barely audible. "The brown ones." "That's right. The brown ones we saw last week. What did you name them?" "Dusty and Penny." "Good girl. That's real good. What else?" But Lily didn't answer. Her head lolled against Sarah's shoulder, her breathing gone shallow and ragged. That wet rattle in her chest, it had been getting worse for 2 days. Sarah knew what it meant. She'd heard that sound before in the tenements back in St. Louis, where children went to sleep coughing and didn't wake up. "No." Sarah shook her daughter gently. "Lily Rose Holloway, you stay with me. You hear? You stay right here with Mama." "Tired," Lily mumbled. "So tired, Mama." "I know, baby. I know you are. But you gotta fight, just a little longer. Can you do that for me?" No answer. Sarah pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead, burning hot despite the freezing air. Fever now on top of everything else. Of course there was fever. God wasn't content with just hunger and cold. He had to pile on every misery he could think of. Or maybe God had stopped listening months ago. Maybe he'd never been listening at all. The tarp ripped free with a sound like a gunshot. Sarah threw herself over Lily as wind and snow hammered down on them, soaking through the thin blanket she'd wrapped around them both. Cold knifed through her clothes, her skin, her bones. She could feel death settling in, patient and inevitable. This is how it ends, she thought. Not Jonas catching us. Not lawmen dragging Lily away. Just cold and hungry, and a storm that doesn't even know we're here. There was almost peace in that. Almost. But then hoofbeats. Sarah's head snapped up. Through the white curtain of snow, she couldn't see anything. But she could hear it. Slow, steady, deliberate. Someone riding careful through the storm. Coming closer. Her hand moved instinctively to the knife in her boot. 6 inches of dull steel wouldn't stop much, but it was all she had. 14 months on the run had taught her that help rarely came without a price. That men who found women alone in the wilderness usually wanted something in return. But Lily was dying in her arms. That changed the calculation. "Here!" Sarah shouted, her voice cracking. "Over here! Please, my daughter, she's sick!" The hoofbeats stopped. A long pause. Then footsteps in the snow, heavy and measured. Sarah pushed herself upright, clutching Lily against her chest, knife gripped tight in her free hand. She positioned herself between her daughter and the approaching figure, ready to fight, ready to beg, ready for whatever came next. A man emerged from the white, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an oilskin coat that shed water in streams and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low against the wind. He moved, slow hands visible at his sides, and when he got close enough for Sarah to see his face, she saw eyes that had seen too much, and a jaw set hard against the cold. He stopped about 10 feet away, looked at her, looked at the knife in her hand, looked at the child bundled against her chest. "Ma'am." His voice was rough as gravel. "You want to put that down? Or you want to keep pointing it at the man who's going to save your life? Depends on what you want in return." Something flickered across his face. Not offense, more like recognition. Like he understood exactly why she was asking. "I want to get you and that child somewhere warm before you both freeze to death. That's all I want." He raised his hands, slowly, palms out. "I got a ranch about an hour's ride north. Roof that don't leak. Stove that works. You're welcome to it." "Why? Why what? Why help us? You don't know me. Don't know nothing about me." The man was quiet for a moment. Snow collected on his hat brim on his shoulders. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, gone softer, touched with something old and painful. "Because 10 years ago, I came home from the war and found my wife dead in a cold house with nobody to help her. Nobody to bring her water or bread or just hold her hand while she suffered." He met Sarah's eyes directly. "I can't undo that. But I can make sure it don't happen to someone else. Not if I can stop it." Sarah felt something crack in her chest. The knife trembled in her grip. "My daughter," she managed. "She's got the wet lung. She needs—" "I know what she needs." The man stepped closer, slow and careful. "Warm room, hot water, honey for the cough. I got all that. But we gotta move now, ma'am. Every minute we stand here jawing is a minute she's getting worse." Lily stirred against Sarah's chest. "Mama, I'm here, baby. Who's that man?" Sarah looked at the stranger, at his steady eyes, his open hands, the grief that hung on him like a second coat. She'd learned to read people in 14 months of running, learned to spot the ones who meant harm, the ones who'd sell her out, the ones who wore kindness like a mask over something ugly. This man wasn't wearing a mask. "He's going to help us," Sarah said, and let the knife drop. The man nodded once, then moved with sudden efficiency. He pulled a bedroll and oilcloth from his horse, wrapped them around Sarah and Lily together, then lifted them both onto his saddle like they weighed nothing at all. "Hold tight to the horn," he instructed. "I'll lead on foot. Won't go faster than walking pace. Your horse can handle the extra weight. It's just an hour, maybe less if the wind dies down." He took the reins and started walking, leading them into the white. The ride was a blur of cold and dark and the steady sound of hoofbeats. Sarah lost track of time, lost track of direction. All that existed was Lily's small body pressed against her chest, the rise and fall of her daughter's breathing, the terrible rattle that accompanied each exhale. She held on to the saddle horn with one hand and to Lily with the other, and she prayed for the first time in months, not to God who had abandoned them, but to whatever force in the universe might still be listening. Let her live. Take me if you want. Just let her live. When shapes finally emerged from the snow, a house, a barn, the dark bulk of outbuildings, Sarah almost didn't believe they were real. She'd been seeing mirages for days. Phantom towns on the horizon, rivers that vanished when they got close. Hope had become a cruel trick her mind played on her. But then the man was lifting her down from the horse, his hands careful and impersonal, and she felt solid wood beneath her feet. A porch, steps leading up to a door. Real. All of it real. "Inside," he said. "Go on. I'll get the horse settled and be right behind." Sarah stumbled through the door and into warmth so sudden and complete it made her dizzy. She had to grab a chair to keep from falling. The room swam around her, a stove glowing in the corner, a table with mismatched chairs, a simple kitchen that smelled like coffee and wood smoke and safety. She made it to the bedroom before her legs gave out. Laid Lily on the bed with trembling hands. Started stripping away the child's soaked clothes, her fingers clumsy and useless with cold. "Here." The man was beside her suddenly, a bundle of fabric in his hands. "Dry shirt. Too big for her, but it's warm, and these blankets, they're clean." Together, they got Lily undressed and wrapped in dry wool. The child moaned, but didn't wake, her face flushed red with fever, her breathing rapid and shallow.
"She needs a doctor,"
Sarah said, her voice breaking. "Nearest doc is in town, 20 miles. Won't make it tonight in this storm." The man's face was grim, but steady. "But I know some things. Learned 'em in the war. Honey and hot water for the cough. Steam to open her lungs. Keep her warm. Keep her drinking fluids. It ain't perfect, but it might be enough. And if it's not—" He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Sarah sank onto the edge of the bed, one hand on Lily's forehead, feeling the heat of fever burning through. Everything she'd fought for. Everything she'd sacrificed, all the miles she'd run, and the terrors she'd endured, it all came down to this. A stranger's house in the middle of nowhere, and a 5-year-old girl who might not see morning. "You should change too." The man's voice cut through her spiral. "You're soaked through. Catch pneumonia yourself, you won't be no good to her." "I don't—" "Shirt's in the dresser. Anything you need, take it. I'll start the water for steam." He left, pulling this door halfway closed behind him. Sarah sat for a moment, unable to move. Then Lily coughed, wet, rattling, terrible, and Sarah's body moved without her mind's permission. She found dry clothes, changed with mechanical efficiency, then returned to her daughter's side and began the long work of keeping her alive. The hours blurred together. Sarah held Lily upright while steam rose from a basin of hot water, trying to loosen whatever was choking her daughter's lungs. She spooned honey and warm water between Lily's cracked lips, coaxing her to swallow. She kept the fire stoked, the blankets tucked tight, and her own fear locked away where Lily couldn't sense it. The man, he'd said his name was Jedediah Tanner, but folks called him Jed, moved in and out like a shadow, bringing fresh hot water, checking the fire, making coffee that he pressed into Sarah's hands when her own started shaking from exhaustion rather than cold. "You should sleep," he said sometime around midnight. "I can watch her." "No." "Ma'am." I said no. Sarah's voice came out harder than she intended. She softened it with effort. "I can't. Not while she's like this. You understand?" Something passed across Jed's face, recognition maybe, or memory. "I understand." He didn't push again, just settled into a chair by the door, rifle across his knees, keeping watch over both of them. Around 3 in the morning, Lily's breathing changed. Sarah felt it before she heard it, a subtle shift in the rhythm, a easing of the terrible rattle. She pressed her hand to Lily's forehead and felt the fever still burning, but maybe less fierce than before. Maybe. "That's right, baby," she whispered. "You fight. You keep fighting." "Mama!" Lily's eyes fluttered open, glassy and confused, but open. "Where are we?" "Somewhere safe. We're safe now. The bad man can't find us here. We're hidden. Just rest." Lily's eyes drifted closed again, but this time it looked more like sleep than surrender. Sarah let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. Her hand found Lily's small fingers and held on tight. "Thank you," she said to the man in the doorway. I can't." "Don't need to thank me." Jed stood stretching muscles that had probably been cramped for hours. "She ain't out of this woods yet, but she's fighting. Kids that fight got a chance. She's been fighting her whole life. Never knew anything else." "That's on account of what's chasing you." Jed moved to the stove, stirred the coals, added another log. "None of my business, I know, but eventually we're gonna have to talk about it." Sarah's throat tightened. "I know. Not tonight. Tonight you stay with your girl. Tomorrow." He paused, his back to her. "Tomorrow we figure out what comes next." He left the room, and Sarah heard him settle onto what sounded like a creaky wooden chair in the main room. Standing guard, keeping watch, like he'd been doing it his whole life. She turned back to Lily, watched her daughter breathe, counted each inhale and exhale like prayer beads. Morning came gray and quiet, the storm having blown itself out sometime before dawn. Sarah woke slumped in a chair beside the bed, her neck stiff and her body aching. But the first thing she registered was Lily's breathing, still ragged, still wet, but steadier, stronger. "Mama!" Sarah's eyes snapped open. Lily was awake, propped against the pillows, pale but alert. Her dark hair was matted with sweat, and her eyes were bruised with exhaustion, but she was looking at Sarah with recognition, with awareness. "Morning, baby." Sarah grabbed her daughter's hand. "How do you feel?" "Tired and hungry." Lily's voice was hoarse. "Real hungry, Mama." Sarah almost laughed, almost cried, did both at once and didn't care how it looked. "Then we'll get you something to eat. The man who lives here, Mr. Tanner, he's been helping us. He'll have food, real food." "He's nice," Lily said. "He came in last night, when you were sleeping, checked on me, pulled the blanket up." "He did." Lily nodded. "He's got sad eyes, Mama, like he misses somebody." Sarah thought about what Jed had told her in the storm. His wife, dead while he was away at war. 10 years of living alone with that grief. Maybe he does, baby. Maybe he does. She got Lily propped up with extra pillows and went to find Jed. He was in the kitchen already at the stove, stirring a pot of something that smelled like cornmeal mush. He'd changed clothes since last night, fresh shirt hair damp, like he'd washed at the pump, and in the gray morning light, Sarah could see him properly for the first time. 40-something, strong-jawed. Gray threaded through brown hair at his temples. A scar on his left forearm visible where his sleeve was rolled up. Hands rough with calluses, moving with the easy competence of a man who'd been taking care of himself for a long time. "She's awake," Sarah said. "Asking for food." Jed didn't turn around, but she saw his shoulders relax. Just a fraction. "That's good. Real good. Hungry's good. I don't know how to thank you." "Already told you. Don't need thanks." He ladled mush into a bowl, then paused. "But I do need truth." Sarah's heart stuttered. "Truth." Now he turned, met her eyes directly. "You're running from something. Someone. Ain't none of my business what, but if that someone's gonna come looking for you here, I need to know. I got a right to know what I'm stepping into." She should have expected this. She should have had a lie ready. But exhaustion and relief, and the memory of his hands gentle on Lily's blanket, had stripped away her defenses. "My husband died," she heard herself say. 14 months ago. Mining accident in Colorado. His brother showed up at the funeral with a lawyer and papers claiming guardianship of my daughter. On what grounds? He said I was unfit, said I couldn't provide for her proper. He had a judge in his pocket money for bribes. I knew if I stayed he'd take her. Sarah's voice went hard. So I ran. Jed was quiet for the long moment. "This brother, he got a name. Silas Holloway. He's a lawyer in St. Louis. Got connections, got resources. He's been hunting us for 14 months. Why, what's he want with a child ain't his?" Sarah's hands curled into fists. "My husband inherited a trust from his father. Not a fortune, but enough to matter. It's supposed to go to Lily when she turns 18. Silas can't touch it as long as I got custody. But if he gets himself named guardian..." "He controls the money," Jed finished. "And Lily along with it. Silas ain't a good man, Mr. Tanner. He drinks, he gambles. He's got a temper that turns mean when he don't get his way. My husband kept him at arm's length for years, but now..." She swallowed. "Now there's nothing standing between him and what he wants, except me." Jed's expression hadn't changed, steady measuring, taking in information and filing it away. "He know you came to Texas?" "Don't think so. I was careful. False names. Back roads. Avoided anybody who might recognize us." Sarah met his eyes. "But Silas is stubborn, and he's got resources. Sooner or later he'll pick up our trail. And when he does, I'll run again. Keep running until Lily's old enough that no court can take her from me." Sarah's voice cracked. "Or until we die trying." The words hung in the air. Jed didn't respond right away. He turned back to the stove, filled a second bowl, then picked up both and headed for the bedroom. "Breakfast first," he said. "Then we talk about what happens next." They ate in the bedroom, all three of them. Lily managed half a bowl of mush before her eyes started drooping again. Sarah finished the rest, barely tasting it, too hungry and too tired to care what it was, as long as it was food. When Lily had fallen back asleep, Jed stood. "Walk with me." Sarah followed him to the porch. The morning was cold but calm, the sky low and gray snow covering everything in a thick white blanket. The ranch stretched around them, modest, well-maintained, the kind of place a man built with his own hands and his own sweat. "That brother of yours," Jed said, leaning against the porch railing. "He ever gonna stop looking?" "Not as long as there's money involved. Silas don't give up. It ain't in his nature." "So you run forever. Spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Raise that little girl, always waiting for the axe to fall." Sarah's jaw tightened. "What choice do I have?" Jed was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "You could change the situation, make those papers of his worthless." "How?" "By making sure Lily's got a legal guardian who can't be challenged. Someone with standing, someone with resources." He paused. "Someone Silas can't push around." Sarah stared at him. The cold air burned her lungs. "I don't know anybody like that." "You do now." The words hit her like a physical blow. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stand there staring at this stranger who had pulled her from a storm and fed her daughter. And now, marriage, Jed said bluntly. "On paper, legal and official. If you're married, Silas can't claim you're unfit. If I adopt Lily as my daughter, his guardianship papers become worthless. He'd have to fight me in court, and I got land, a reputation in this county, friends who'd vouch for me. You don't even know me. I know you've been running for 14 months with a sick child. I know you'd rather die than let someone take her. I know you're scared and hungry and got nothing left." Jed's eyes met hers. "And I know I got an empty house and no family and a debt to pay to whoever's keeping score up there." "This isn't, you can't." Sarah's voice was shaking. "You'd tie yourself to a stranger, to a woman with trouble hunting her." "I'd give a little girl a home and a name. I'd give her mama a chance to stop running." Jed straightened. "Ain't asking for anything in return except the truth. And maybe someone to share supper with." Sarah pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady her heart. Everything she knew about men, about survival, about the cost of depending on anyone, it all screamed at her to refuse. To thank him kindly and keep running. But Lily was sleeping in a warm bed for the first time in months. Lily had eaten a full meal and asked for more. Lily had smiled at a stranger who tucked her blanket and didn't expect anything in return. "I have conditions," Sarah heard herself say. "I'm listening." "Lily comes first, always, in every decision. Her welfare is the priority." "Agreed. I'll contribute to the household. Cooking, cleaning accounts. I won't be dead weight." "Never thought you would be." "And if I ever want to leave, if this don't work, you let us go. No arguments, no trying to keep us against our will." Jed extended his hand. "You got my word. This ain't a cage, Sarah. It's shelter. You want to leave, you leave." Sarah looked at his hand, rough with calluses, steady as stone. She took it. "Then yes," she said. "I'll marry you." The word hung between them like smoke in still air. Yes. Sarah couldn't believe she'd said it. Couldn't believe she'd agreed to marry a man she'd known less than 24 hours. But Jed just nodded once, like they'd settled on the price of cattle instead of the rest of their lives. "I'll ride to town tomorrow," he said. "Talk to the pastor. Get the paperwork started." "How long?" "Week, maybe less. Texas ain't got much waiting period for weddings." He paused. "You should rest now. That girl's gonna need you strong when she wakes." He turned and walked back inside, leaving Sarah alone on the porch, with her heart pounding and her mind spinning. She'd just promised herself to a stranger, promised Lily to a stranger. Either this was salvation or the biggest mistake she'd ever made. She went back to Lily's bedside and didn't sleep at all. 3 days passed. Lily got stronger by the hour. The wet rattle in her chest faded to an occasional cough. Her fever broke on the second morning, and by the third afternoon, she was sitting up in bed demanding real food instead of mush. "I want eggs," she announced, "and bacon, and biscuits with honey." Sarah actually laughed a sound she'd almost forgotten how to make. "That's a big order for someone who couldn't lift her head 2 days ago." "I'm hungry, Mama. Real hungry." "I heard." Jed appeared in the doorway, a ghost of a smile on his weathered face. "Eggs and bacon coming up. Biscuits too if your mama's willing to help. Mine come out like rocks." Sarah stood smoothing her borrowed dress. "I can manage biscuits." They worked side by side in the kitchen, moving around each other with the awkward carefulness of strangers sharing close space. Jed cracked eggs into a skillet while Sarah mixed flour and lard. Neither spoke much, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. "You do this every morning?" Sarah asked finally. "Cook for yourself. Ain't nobody else to do it?" "How long you been alone out here?" Jed's hands stilled on the skillet. 10 years, give or take. That's a long time. Gets easier. Or you get used to it. Hard to tell which. Sarah wanted to ask more. About his wife. About the baby he'd lost. But something in his posture warned her off. Some griefs weren't meant to be poked at. They brought breakfast to Lily, who ate like she was making up for every missed meal of the past 14 months. Jed watched her with an expression Sarah couldn't quite read, something between wonder and pain, like seeing a miracle and a memory at the same time. "Mr. Tanner?" Lily's voice was muffled by a mouthful of biscuit. "Yeah? Why'd you help us? Mama says you didn't have to." Jed set down his coffee cup, took his time answering. "You ever see a bird with a broken wing, Lily, one that can't fly?" Lily nodded solemnly. "What do you do when you find one?" "Try to fix it. Make it better so it can fly again." "That's right. That's what good folks do. They find broken things and try to fix them." He glanced at Sarah, then back to Lily. "You and your mama, you ain't broken. Just lost your way for a bit. Figured I could help you find it again." Lily considered this. "Mama says we're gonna live here now. With you. That's the plan." "Does that mean you're gonna be my papa?" The question landed like a thunderclap. Sarah's breath caught. Jed went very still. "Lily," Sarah started, but Jed held up a hand. "It's all right." He leaned forward, elbows on knees, bringing himself to Lily's level. "You already got a papa, Lily. The one who went to heaven. You remember him?" "Sometimes. He had a nice laugh, and he used to carry me on his shoulders." "That's good. That's real good that you remember." Jed's voice was rough. "I ain't trying to take his place. Nobody could do that. But if you want, I could be something else. Someone who takes care of you and your mama. Someone who keeps you safe." Lily's dark eyes studied him with unnerving intensity. "Like a papa, but different. Like whatever you need me to be." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Can I call you Papa, Jed? That way I got two. One in heaven and one here." Something cracked in Jed's expression. Something old and wounded that Sarah hadn't seen him let slip before. He swallowed hard. "Yeah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You can call me that." Lily smiled bright and sudden as sunlight through clouds and went back to her breakfast like she hadn't just rearranged the world. Sarah found Jed on the porch an hour later, staring at nothing. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Accept what she called you. I could have told her it was too soon." "Too soon for who?" Jed didn't look at her. "That little girl's been through hell. If calling me Papa Jed makes her feel safe, I ain't gonna take that from her. But it's a lot to carry, being someone's father." Now he turned. His eyes were red-rimmed, though his face showed nothing. I had a son once. Never got to hold him. Never got to hear him call me anything. His jaw tightened. If Lily wants to give me that word, I'll spend the rest of my life earning it. Sarah didn't know what to say. Didn't know if there were words for the thing swelling in her chest, gratitude and grief, and something else she couldn't name. The pastor's expecting us day after tomorrow. Jed said, his voice steady again. I brought back fabric from town, blue cotton. Figured you might want something new to wear. You didn't have to. I wanted to. He met her eyes. Ain't much of a wedding, I know. No family, no flowers, no fancy church. But it's real. It counts. And you deserve to feel like it matters. Sarah's throat closed. It matters, she managed. It all matters. The next 2 days moved in a blur. Sarah sewed a simple dress from the blue cotton, her fingers remembering skills she hadn't used in years. Lily helped by holding pins and offering opinions on every stitch. Jed made himself scarce during the sewing, but he appeared at mealtimes with food and at night with firewood, taking care of them in the quiet, practical way that was becoming familiar. On the morning of the wedding, a wagon appeared on the road. Sarah's heart seized. Her hand flew to the knife she'd started keeping in her pocket again. But Jed was already on the porch, relaxed, waving. That's the Porters, he said. Neighbors from 3 miles north. I asked them to be witnesses. The wagon pulled up, and a black couple climbed down, a tall man with military bearing and a woman with kind eyes and capable hands. Samuel and Abigail Porter. Jed introduced them. Been ranching the territory for 15 years. So you're the ones Jed pulled from that storm. Abigail took Sarah's hands in both of hers. Lord have mercy, child. You look like you could use a good meal and a month of sleep. I'm fine, really. Men always say folks are fine when they ain't. Abigail steered her toward the house. Come on, let's get you ready. Samuel can help Jed with whatever menfolk do before a wedding. Inside, Abigail worked with brisk efficiency, fixing Sarah's hair, adjusting the blue dress, clucking over the thinness of Sarah's wrists and the shadows under her eyes. 14 months on the run, Abigail said. That's what Jed told Samuel. Your husband's brother hunting you. Sarah nodded. He wants my daughter. Wants what she stands to inherit. Money makes folks do evil things. Abigail pinned a stray lock of hair into place. But you're in Texas now. Different laws here. Different people. That brother of yours gonna have a hard time finding traction. He won't stop looking. Silas never stops. Abigail stepped back, studying Sarah with an assessing eye. Maybe not. But you ain't alone no more, are you? You got Jed, you got us. That's gotta count for something. Does it? When he's got lawyers and judges and money. Honey. Abigail's voice softened. I've been where you are. Not the same situation, but the same fear. That feeling like the whole world's against you and nobody's gonna help. She took Sarah's hands again. Samuel and me, we built this life from nothing. Freed slaves with no land, no money, no rights to speak of. But we found good people, made good friends, kept going even when it seemed hopeless. She squeezed tight. You can do the same. You already started. Sarah blinked back tears. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait till you taste my peach preserves. Then you can thank me. The wedding was simple. They drove the wagon to town, a small cluster of buildings huddled against the prairie, and gathered in a plain wooden chapel with bare walls and hard pews. Pastor Matthews was a thin, serious man who asked the required questions and received the required answers without embellishment. Do you, Jedediah Tanner, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Sarah Jane Holloway, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Sarah looked at Jed, at his steady eyes, his weathered face, his hands clasped in front of him like he was praying. She thought of all the reasons this was insane, all the ways it could go wrong. Then she thought of Lily, safe and warm, and calling him Papa Jed. I do. Pastor Matthews pronounced them man and wife, Jed produced a ring, simple gold, worn smooth, and slipped it onto Sarah's finger. "My mother's," he said quietly. "Only thing of value I got left from before the war." When the pastor said Jed could kiss his bride, he looked at Sarah with a question in his eyes. She nodded, and he pressed a chaste kiss to her forehead, respectful, proper, and somehow more intimate than if he'd kissed her mouth. Samuel slapped Jed on the back. Abigail embraced Sarah. Lily bounced between all of them, excited by the ceremony, even if she didn't fully understand it. "We're really a family now?" she asked on the wagon ride home. "For real and forever." "For real and forever," Jed confirmed. "Good." Lily snuggled between Sarah and Jed on the wagon seat. "I like it here. I like the horses and the chickens and the big sky. And I like you, Papa Jed. You make Mama smile." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Lily." "She's right," Jed said mildly. "You do smile more. Looks good on you." The first week of marriage was strange and ordinary all at once. They settled into rhythms, Jed rising before dawn to tend the cattle, Sarah managing the house and watching over Lily, all three gathering for meals and quiet evenings by the fire. Jed gave Sarah and Lily the bedroom, insisting he was fine on a pallet in the main room. "You don't have to do that," Sarah told him. "This is your house, your bed. It's our house now, and you need proper rest more than I do." "But, Sarah," he said her name like it meant something. "I told you this ain't a cage. It also ain't a demand. When you're ready to share a room, you'll tell me. Until then, I sleep out here. That's final." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on fairness, on not being a burden. But the truth was, she wasn't ready. 14 months of running had taught her to sleep light and trust no one. Sharing a bed with a man, even this man, felt like a vulnerability she couldn't afford. So she let him have his pallet, and she lay alone in the bedroom, and slowly, night by night, she started to feel safe enough to actually sleep. Lily healed faster than Sarah thought possible. Within 2 weeks, the cough was gone entirely. She ran through the house with energy that exhausted Sarah just watching. She followed Jed around the ranch like a shadow, asking endless questions about horses and cattle and why the sky was so big in Texas. "She's attached to him," Sarah told Abigail during one of the older woman's visits. "Already, after just a few weeks." "That bother you?" "No. Yes. I don't know." Sarah stirred the soup she was making. "Thomas, my first husband, he loved her, but he was never present like this. Always working, always tired. Jed pays attention, listens to her, teaches her things. And that scares you. Everything scares me, Abigail. What if Silas finds us? What if this all falls apart? What if Lily gets her heart broken because she trusted someone she shouldn't have? What if she doesn't?" Abigail's voice was gentle. "What if this is exactly what it looks like? A good man doing a good thing for a woman and child who needed it. Good things don't happen to me. Not anymore. They're happening right now, honey. Question is whether you're gonna let yourself believe it." That night, Sarah watched Jed reading to Lily by the fire. He was working through a book of frontier stories, his rough voice giving life to cowboys and outlaws and heroes on the range. Lily was curled against his side, eyes half closed with contentment. He looked up and caught Sarah staring. "She's almost out," he said softly. "I'll carry her to bed in a minute. Thank you for everything you do with her. Ain't a hardship." He glanced down at Lily's sleeping face. "She's easy to love." Something shifted in Sarah's chest, something that felt like hope trying to take root in barren ground. "Jed," she started. The front door slammed open. Samuel Porter burst in, breathing hard, his face slick with sweat despite the cold. "Jed, we got trouble." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She snatched Lily from Jed's arms, the child waking with a confused cry. What's wrong?" Samuel looked at her, then at Jed. "There's a man in town. Came in on the afternoon stage. He's asking questions. About a widow woman with a dark-haired daughter. about anyone who might have seen him pass through. Who? Jed was already on his feet. Who is he? Didn't give a name. But he's wearing city clothes and carrying himself like a lawyer. And Jed, Samuel's voice dropped. He's got papers, some kind of legal authority. Sheriff took one look and went all official. The room tilted. Sarah's arms tightened around Lily so hard the child whimpered. He found us, she whispered. God help me, he found us. We don't know that, Jed said firmly. Could be anyone. Could be coincidence. It ain't coincidence and you know it. Sarah's voice cracked. Silas found us. He's here. After everything, after all that running. Sarah. Jed crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. Look at me. She forced herself to meet his eyes. You ain't running this time. You hear me? You got a marriage certificate filed with this county. You got adoption papers I signed yesterday. You got friends and neighbors who'll vouch for you. His jaw set hard. Silas Holloway wants to take Lily. He's gonna have to go through me first. And I don't go down easy. But he's got paper from Missouri. This is Texas. Different laws, different judges, different people. Jed's hands tightened on her shoulders. Trust me, please. Lily tugged at Sarah's dress. Mama, is the bad man coming? Sarah looked at her daughter's face, at the fear there, the too old understanding of what this meant. 14 months of running and this child still remembered, still expected the worst. Something hardened in Sarah's spine. No, baby, she said, and her voice came out steady as stone. He's not coming, not here, not ever again. She met Jed's eyes over Lily's head. What do we do? Tomorrow we ride to town. We talk to the sheriff before Silas does. We show him our papers, our witnesses, our proof. Jed's expression was fierce. We fight Sarah, and this time we win. Samuel cleared his throat. Abigail's already spreading word among the neighbors. By morning you'll have half the county ready to testify that Lily's been here for weeks, happy and healthy and loved. Why? Sarah's voice broke. Why would strangers do that for us? Because you're not strangers no more, Samuel said simply. You're Jed's family. That makes you ours too. The night passed in restless fragments. Sarah lay in the bedroom with Lily clutched close, listening to Jed's footsteps on the porch, the creak of his chair as he kept watch. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow seemed to hold Silas's face. But morning came anyway. Jed was waiting when she emerged, already dressed, his jaw freshly shaved, and his best shirt pressed. He looked like a man preparing for war. Lily stays with the Porters, he said. Abigail's already here to get her. You and me are riding to town. I'm not leaving her. You ain't leaving her. You're protecting her by keeping her out of Silas's sight. His voice softened. Sarah, if he sees her, he'll try something. Some legal trick, some claim he can take her while things get sorted. But if she ain't there, he's got nothing to grab. The logic was sound. Sarah hated it anyway. She knelt before Lily, cupping the child's face in her hands. Baby, I need you to stay with Mrs. Abigail today. Papa Jed and I have to go to town. Because of the bad man. Because we're going to make sure the bad man can't hurt us, ever again. Lily's lower lip trembled. Promise you'll come back. I promise. Sarah kissed her forehead. I will always, always come back for you. That's my promise forever. Abigail took Lily's hand and led her to the wagon. Sarah watched them go, her heart splitting in half. She'll be safe, Jed said. Samuel's staying at the house with a rifle. Ain't nobody getting near her. Sarah turned to face him. And us, are we going to be safe? Jed's mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Reckon we're about to find out. They rode into town together as the sun climbed over the prairie. Sarah sat stiff in the saddle, one hand on the reins, and the other pressed flat against the pocket where their marriage certificate rested, crackling faintly with each step of the horse. The town was quiet. Too quiet. Shops were open, but empty. People stood in doorways watching them pass. Word had spread, Sarah realized. The whole town knew what was coming. Sheriff Cole met them on the steps of his office, a weathered man with steel-gray hair and careful eyes. He nodded to Jed, then studied Sarah with an assessing gaze. "Mrs. Tanner, I presume?" "That's right. There's a man inside who claims different. Says you're Sarah Holloway, and that the child with you is under his legal guardianship. His claim is outdated." Sarah pulled the papers from her pocket. "I was married 3 weeks ago, to Jedediah Tanner, legally and properly with witnesses and documentation. My husband has adopted my daughter. Silas Holloway's guardianship papers are worthless now." The sheriff took the papers, examining them carefully. "These look official." "They are official, filed with the county clerk last week. He says they're fraudulent, says you tricked some local fool into helping you evade justice." "Does he?" Sarah's voice went flat. "And what do you say, Sheriff?" Cole looked at Jed, then back at Sarah. Something shifted in his expression. "I say I've known Jed Tanner for 15 years, served with him in the war, watched him bury his wife and build this ranch from nothing." His jaw tightened. "I also say I don't take kindly to city lawyers coming into my town and telling me how to do my job." The office door swung open. Silas Holloway stepped out into the morning light. He looked exactly as Sarah remembered, tall, narrow-faced, with the cold eyes of a man who saw people as problems to be solved. He wore an expensive suit that marked him as foreign in this dusty town, and his smile was the same one he'd worn at Thomas's funeral. Polite, predatory. "Sarah." His voice was silk over broken glass. "How good to see you again." Sarah's hand curled into a fist at her side. "I wish I could say the same, Silas. I've come a long way to find you. 14 months is a long time to run from family." "You're not my family. You never were." "But Lily is." Silas stepped closer. "My brother's only child. My niece. My responsibility." "Your cash cow, you mean?" Jed's voice cut through like a blade. "That's what this is about, ain't it? The trust fund. The inheritance." Silas's smile flickered. "I don't believe we've been introduced. Jedediah Tanner, Sarah's husband, Lily's father." Jed stepped forward, putting himself between Sarah and Silas. "And the man who's going to put you on the next stage back to Missouri, if you don't walk away right now." For a moment, nobody moved. The street was silent. The whole town seemed to be holding its breath. Then Silas laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "You think a piece of paper changes anything? You think marrying this woman makes her less of a thief and a kidnapper?" He pulled a folded document from his coat. "I have guardianship papers signed by a judge in St. Louis. I have the authority to take Lily Holloway into protective custody pending a full hearing." "You have paper from Missouri," Sheriff Cole said. "This is Texas. Different jurisdiction. Federal law supersedes state law when it comes to child custody across state lines." "Maybe, maybe not." Cole took the papers from Silas, examining them with deliberate slowness. "Tell you what, Mr. Holloway, I'll take this to Judge Harrison. Let him decide whose paper carries more weight. And in the meantime, that child stays with her mother, right where she belongs." Silas's face twisted. For a moment, Sarah saw the real him, the rage beneath the polish, the cruelty behind the smile. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "Not by a long shot." "Then I reckon we'll see each other in court." Jed's voice was steady as stone. "But Silas, you come near my family before then, you even look at them wrong, and there won't be a judge in Texas who can protect you from what happens next." He took Sarah's arm and turned them both away. They walked back to their horses without looking back. But Sarah could feel Silas's eyes burning into her spine the whole way. "He'll find another way," she said as they mounted up. "He won't stop." "Neither will we." Jed gathered his reins. Let him come, Sarah. We're ready. They rode home as the sun climbed higher, leaving Silas standing alone in the dust. The days that followed were the longest of Sarah's life. She moved through them like a woman walking through deep water, every step heavy, every breath an effort. Lily stayed close, sensing her mother's fear even though Sarah tried to hide it. Jed worked the ranch during the day, but never strayed far, always within earshot, always watching the horizon. And somewhere in town, Silas was waiting. "He's still at the boarding house," Samuel reported on the third day. "Sending telegrams every morning, receiving 'em every afternoon. Martha at the general store says he's ordered more paper than the whole town uses in a month." "Building his case," Jed said grimly. "Building something." Samuel's jaw tightened. "Jed, I don't like it. Man like that don't sit quiet unless he's planning something big." Sarah's hands twisted in her apron. "What can he plan? We have the papers. We have witnesses. The law is on our side." "Law's a funny thing," Samuel said carefully. "Depends on who's reading it." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in the darkness listening to Lily's steady breathing, her mind racing through every terrible possibility. Silas had connections, money, lawyers who knew how to twist words into weapons. What if Judge Harrison sided with him? What if the marriage wasn't enough? What if a soft knock on the bedroom door? "Sarah." Jed's voice low and careful. "You awake?" She slipped out of bed, pulling a shawl around her shoulders, and opened the door. Jed stood in the dim light of the banked fire, still dressed, his face drawn with the same worry that gnawed at her. "Couldn't sleep either," he said. "No." "Come sit with me, just for a bit." They settled at the kitchen table, 2 cups of cold coffee between them. Neither spoke for a long moment. The silence felt fragile, like thin ice over dark water. "I keep thinking about what happens if we lose," Sarah finally said. "If the judge sides with Silas, if they take her, they won't. But if they do, Sarah." Jed's hand closed over hers, warm, steady. "Look at me." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I made you a promise. The day we married. You remember. You made a lot of promises. One that mattered most." His grip tightened. "I said nobody was gonna take Lily. Not while I'm breathing. That ain't just words. That's a vow. Vows can break, Jed. I've seen it. Good men make promises they can't keep. I ain't a good man." His voice went rough. "I'm a stubborn one. There's a difference." He released her hand and leaned back. "Whatever happens in that courtroom, we face it together. And if the judge rules wrong, if by some miracle of injustice Silas gets what he wants, we disappear. All 3 of us. I got friends in territories Silas never heard of. We start over. You'd give up the ranch, everything you built. Sarah." He said her name like it was the only word that mattered. "I built this place to have something to come home to. But it's just land and buildings. It ain't a home without people in it." He paused. "Without you and Lily in it." Something cracked in Sarah's chest. The wall she'd built around her heart, brick by careful brick, over 14 months of running and surviving and trusting no one. "Jed, you don't have to say anything. I ain't asking for anything back. Just needed you to know." He stood his chair, scraping against the floor. "Try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's gonna be a long day." He was at the door when her voice stopped him. "I trust you." Jed turned. "I haven't trusted anyone in a long time." Sarah continued, the words coming hard. "Not since Thomas died. Maybe not even before. But I trust you, Jed Tanner. With Lily. With everything." Something shifted in his expression. Something that looked almost like hope. "That's enough for now," he said quietly. "That's more than enough." The hearing was set for Friday. Sheriff Cole delivered the summons personally, his face carefully neutral. "Judge Harrison's giving both sides a chance to present. 10 o'clock at the courthouse. Be there early." Will we get a fair hearing? Sarah asked. Cole hesitated. Harrison's a good man, but he's also careful. He'll follow the letter of the law, whatever that means. He glanced at Jed. You might want to bring those witnesses you mentioned. All of them. By Thursday evening, word had spread. The Porters were coming, of course. But so were the Hendersons from the ranch to the east, and old Mrs. Cartwright, who ran the dry goods store, and the pastor who'd married them, and a dozen others Sarah barely knew. They arrived one by one, stopping by the ranch to offer support, or simply to let her know they'd be there. Why? Sarah asked Abigail as they prepared supper for the crowd. These people don't know me, don't owe me anything. They know Jed. They know the kind of man he is. Abigail handed her a pile of plates. And they know what Silas is, what he represents. City lawyers coming to take children from their mamas. That don't sit right with frontier folks. But if the judge... Honey? Abigail's hand closed on her arm. Stop borrowing trouble. You'll have enough of your own come morning. That night, Lily crawled into bed with Sarah. Mama. Her voice was small in the darkness. Am I going to have to go with Uncle Silas? Sarah's arms tightened around her daughter. No, baby. Never. Promise. I promise. She kissed Lily's hair. Papa, Jed, and I won't let anyone take you away. Not ever. I don't like Uncle Silas. He has mean eyes. I know, sweetheart. Papa Jed has nice eyes. Sad but nice. Lily snuggled closer. He looks at you different than he looks at other people, Mama. Different how? Like you're something special. Something he's been waiting for. Sarah didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Just held her daughter close and counted the hours until dawn. Morning came too fast and too slow all at once. Sarah dressed in her blue cotton dress, the one she'd sewn for the wedding, and braided her hair with trembling fingers. Jed was already waiting on the porch, cleaned up and somber, when she emerged with Lily. Lily stays with Abigail during the hearing, he said. Safer that way. Sarah knelt before her daughter. Baby, I need you to be very brave today. Can you do that for me? Lily nodded, her face serious. Will you come back? Always. Sarah kissed her forehead. I will always come back for you. Abigail took Lily's hand and led her toward the Porter wagon. Sarah watched them go, her heart splitting in two. She'll be fine, Jed said. I know. Sarah straightened her spine. Let's finish this. The ride to town was silent. Sarah gripped the saddle horn with white-knuckled hands, her stomach churning with fear and anger and desperate hope. Beside her, Jed rode easy and steady, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes kept scanning the horizon. The town was already awake when they arrived. People lined the wooden sidewalks watching them pass. Some nodded. Some called out words of encouragement. Most just stared with the hungry curiosity that drew folks to courthouses and hanging trees. The courthouse was a simple wooden building at the end of the main street. Sheriff Cole waited on the steps, flanked by his two deputies. They're already inside, he said as they approached. Holloway and his lawyer came early. Lawyer. Sarah's stomach dropped. He has a lawyer now. Arrived on yesterday's stage, some hotshot from Kansas City, supposed to be real good at custody cases. Cole's expression was grim. Just thought you should know. Jed's hand found the small of Sarah's back. Steady. Grounding. We got truth on our side, he said. That's worth more than any fancy lawyer. They walked inside together. The courtroom was packed. Every seat was taken, and more people stood along the walls. Sarah spotted the Porters near the front and the Hendersons and Pastor Matthews and a dozen other faces she'd come to recognize over the past weeks. Their people. Their witnesses. And across the aisle, Silas. He sat at a table near the judge's bench, looking crisp and confident in his city suit. Beside him was a sharp-featured man with spectacles and a leather portfolio, the Kansas City lawyer. Silas caught Sarah's eye and smiled. Her blood ran cold. All rise, the bailiff called. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge William Harrison presiding. Judge Harrison was a heavy-set man with white whiskers and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He settled into his chair and surveyed the crowded courtroom with evident displeasure. "This is a custody hearing, not a carnival. I'll have order in my courtroom, or I'll clear it." He nodded to the bailiff. "Let's begin." The Kansas City lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, my client Silas Holloway comes before this court seeking enforcement of a valid custody order issued by Judge Marcus Webb of St. Louis, Missouri." He produced a sheaf of papers. "These documents clearly establish Mr. Holloway as the legal guardian of the minor child Lily Holloway, daughter of the late Thomas Holloway." "On what grounds was guardianship granted?" Harrison asked. "The mother, Sarah Holloway, now apparently calling herself Sarah Tanner, was deemed unfit by the Missouri court. She lacked the financial means to provide for the child. She had no family support, no stable home, no prospects for improvement." "That was 14 months ago," Sarah said, unable to stay silent. "Everything has changed." "Mrs. Tanner," Harrison's voice was sharp, "you'll have your chance to speak. Until then, you will remain silent." Sarah bit her tongue so hard she tasted blood. The lawyer continued smoothly. "Furthermore, Your Honor, my client has reason to believe the marriage between Sarah Holloway and Jedediah Tanner is fraudulent, a sham arrangement designed solely to circumvent legitimate custody orders." "That's a lie," Jed said. "Mr. Tanner." Harrison's gaze swung to him. "Same rules apply. Speak out of turn again, and I'll hold you in contempt." The lawyer smiled. Silas looked smug. "We request," the lawyer concluded, "that this court recognize the Missouri custody order and remand the child Lily Holloway into the care of her rightful guardian." Harrison turned to Sarah and Jed. "Your response?" Jed stood slowly. "Your Honor, I ain't got a fancy lawyer, and I ain't much for speech-making. But I got facts, and I got witnesses, and I got the truth." "Then present them." 3 weeks ago, I found Sarah and Lily half dead in a blizzard, starving, freezing. The child had wet lungs so bad I didn't think she'd make it through the night." His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the anger underneath. "I brought them to my ranch, fed them, warmed them, saved that little girl's life. And then I did what any decent man would do. I offered them protection. By marrying the mother, by giving them a home, a family, a future." Jed pulled papers from his coat. "Here's our marriage certificate signed by Pastor Matthews and witnessed by Samuel and Abigail Porter, both upstanding citizens of this county. Here's the adoption papers I filed legal and proper, making Lily my daughter. And here's a letter from every neighbor within 20 miles testifying to the welfare of that child under my roof." Harrison took the papers, examining them carefully. "Mr. Holloway's claim," Jed continued, "is based on old papers from Missouri. Papers that say Sarah was unfit because she was poor and alone. Well, she ain't poor now. She ain't alone. She's my wife. Lily's got a home, a father, and a community that loves her. What Silas Holloway got a piece of paper signed by a judge who never met that child?" "The law is the law," the Kansas City lawyer interjected. "A valid custody order. A custody order based on circumstances that no longer exist," Jed shot back. "Sarah's situation has changed. That's grounds for modification under any reasonable interpretation of custody law." Harrison held up a hand. "Enough. Both of you." He turned to Silas. "Mr. Holloway, I'd like to hear from you directly. Why do you want custody of this child?" Silas stood, adjusting his coat with practiced ease. "Your Honor, Lily is my brother's only child, his legacy. When Thomas died, I became responsible for her welfare. I took legal steps to ensure she would be properly cared for. And you believe Mrs. Tanner, your sister-in-law, is incapable of providing that care? I believe she's unstable. She fled across state lines with my niece, evading legal authorities for over a year. She married a stranger within weeks of meeting him. These are not the actions of a stable, responsible parent. They're the actions of a mother protecting her child, Sarah said, unable to stay silent any longer. Protecting her from you. Harrison's eyes narrowed. Mrs. Tanner. No. Sarah stood, her hands shaking but her voice clear. I've been quiet long enough. I've let lawyers and papers and judges decide my daughter's fate. Not anymore. The courtroom went dead silent. Silas Holloway doesn't want Lily because he loves her. He's never loved her. He barely knew she existed until Thomas died. Sarah's voice grew stronger with each word. He wants her because of what she represents. Money. Thomas left a trust fund for Lily. Not a fortune, but enough. Silas can't touch it as long as I have custody. But if he controls Lily... That's a lie, Silas snapped. Is it? Sarah turned to face him directly. Tell the court about your debts, Silas. Tell them about the gambling. The money you owe to dangerous men. Tell them why you really need that trust fund. Silas's face went white, then red. This is slander, the Kansas City lawyer said. Your Honor, this woman is making baseless accusations. Are they baseless? A new voice from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. A man stood in the doorway, dusty from travel, carrying a leather satchel. He was thin and nervous-looking, with spectacles perched on his nose, and the rumpled appearance of someone who'd been riding hard. Who are you? Harrison demanded. My name is Arthur Pembroke. I'm an investigator with the First Continental Bank of St. Louis. He walked forward, pulling papers from his satchel. I've been tracking Silas Holloway for 6 months. The bank hired me after discovering irregularities in several accounts he managed, including the Holloway Family Trust. The courtroom erupted. Harrison banged his gavel. Order, order. Pembroke reached the front of the room and handed his papers to the judge. Mr. Holloway has been systematically embezzling funds from the estates he manages, including the trust meant for his niece. He's already stolen over $3,000. The only reason he hasn't taken more is because the trust is locked until the child turns 18 or until he gains legal custody. Sarah felt the floor tilt beneath her. $3,000. Thomas's legacy. Stolen. This is absurd, Silas sputtered. This man is lying. I have bank records, Mr. Holloway, signed documents in your own hand. Pembroke's voice was cold. I also have testimony from your creditors, specifically the men you owe gambling debts to, over $8,000 worth. Silas's composure cracked. Sarah saw the mask slip, saw the real man underneath, desperate, cornered, dangerous. You can't prove any of this. I already have. The Saint. Louis authorities issued a warrant for your arrest 2 days ago. Fraud, embezzlement, and theft. Pembroke turned to Sheriff Cole. I'm authorized to request your assistance in taking Mr. Holloway into custody. The courtroom exploded again. People were on their feet shouting. The Kansas City lawyer was backing away from Silas, like he'd discovered his client was contagious. And Silas lunged. He knocked Pembroke aside and grabbed for Sarah, his hands closing around her arms with bruising force. You did this, he hissed. You ruined everything. Jed moved faster than Sarah would have thought possible. One moment, Silas was gripping her arms. The next, he was on the floor. Jed's fist having connected with his jaw with a crack that echoed through the courtroom. Silas tried to rise, and Jed hit him again. And again. Jed! Sarah grabbed his arm. Stop. He's done. It's over. Jed froze, breathing hard, his knuckles bloody. He looked down at Silas, crumpled on the floor, nose, streaming blood, all his city polish stripped away. You come near my family again, Jed said quietly, and there won't be a sheriff or a judge or a God in heaven who can save you. Sheriff Cole and his deputies moved in, hauling Silas to his feet and clamping irons on his wrists. Silas Holloway, Cole said, you're under arrest. You'll be transported to St. Louis to face charges. He paused. And Mr. Holloway, I suggest you don't resist. They dragged him toward the door. Silas twisted, looking back at Sarah one last time. His eyes were wild, desperate, full of impotent rage. This isn't over, he spat. You think you've won? You've won nothing. The door slammed shut behind him. Silence fell. Judge Harrison cleared his throat. Well, that was eventful. He straightened his papers with deliberate calm. Given the circumstances, I see no reason to continue this hearing. The custody petition filed by Silas Holloway is denied. The marriage between Sarah Tanner and Jedediah Tanner is recognized as valid. The adoption of Lily Holloway, now Lily Tanner, is affirmed. He banged his gavel once. Case dismissed. Sarah's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Jed hadn't caught her, his arms wrapping around her waist and holding her upright. Around them, the courtroom erupted in cheers. People were slapping Jed on the back, reaching for Sarah's hand, calling out congratulations. But Sarah couldn't hear any of it. All she could think was, "It's over. It's really over." "Sarah." Jed's voice cut through the noise. "Sarah, look at me." She lifted her head. His face was close to hers, his eyes bright with something that looked like joy and relief, and something else, something deeper. "We did it," he said. "We won." "We won." She repeated the words strange and wonderful in her mouth. "Let's go get our daughter." They rode back to the Porter Ranch as fast as the horses could carry them. Lily saw them coming and broke away from Abigail, running across the yard with her arms outstretched. Sarah dismounted before her horse had fully stopped and caught her daughter, swinging her up and holding her so tight. "Mama!" Lily wrapped her arms around Sarah's neck. "Is the bad man gone?" "He's gone, baby." Sarah's voice broke. "He's gone, and he's never coming back. Never. Promise? I promise, forever and ever." Jed approached them slowly, his hat in his hands. Lily reached for him, and he took her, settling her on his hip like he'd been doing it his whole life. "We won, Papa Jed. We won, little one. So I get to stay with you and Mama. Forever." Jed's voice was rough. "You're stuck with us now, Lily Tanner." Lily's face broke into a smile, brighter than the Texas sun. She threw her arms around Jed's neck and held on like she'd never let go. And watching them, her husband holding her daughter, both of them safe. Both of them hers. Sarah felt something she'd forgotten how to feel. Hope. Real, solid, unshakable hope. The Porters insisted they stay for supper. It turned into a celebration, with neighbors arriving one by one to congratulate them, bringing food and wine and laughter. Sarah sat at the long table surrounded by people who'd become friends, watching Lily play with the Porter grandchildren, watching Jed shake hands and accept slaps on the back with awkward grace. Abigail settled into the chair beside her. "How you feeling, honey?" Sarah considered the question. "I don't know. I keep waiting to wake up. Waiting for something to go wrong." "Nothing's gonna go wrong. That man's in chains heading to a St. Louis prison. The judge ruled in your favor. Your papers are solid." Abigail took her hand. "You're safe, Sarah. It's okay to believe it." "I'm not sure I know how." "You'll learn. Takes time is all. Takes letting yourself trust that good things can happen to good people." Abigail squeezed her hand. "And they can, honey. They do. You're living proof." Later, as the sun set and the celebration wound down, Sarah found Jed on the Porter's porch, staring at the horizon. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, settling beside him. "Thinking about what comes next." He glanced at her. "We got a ranch to run, a child to raise, a life to build. Sounds like a lot. Sounds like everything I ever wanted." He paused. "Everything I stopped believing I could have." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, "Jed, what you said last night, about this not being home without me and Lily in it. I meant it. I know you did." She took a breath. "I haven't been fair to you. I married you for protection, for Lily's sake. I never let myself think about what that meant for you or for me." "You didn't have to think about it. I didn't ask you to. But I want to. Now." She turned to face him fully. I spent 14 months running from something. Maybe it's time I started running towards something instead. Jed's expression shifted, careful hope flickering in his eyes. What are you saying, Sarah? I'm saying I'd like this marriage to be real, not just papers and arrangements. Real. She reached for his hand. If you still want that. He didn't answer with words. He pulled her close and kissed her, not on the forehead this time, not chaste and proper, but real, full deep. She felt herself melting into him, felt all the walls she'd built crumbling away. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, Jed rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted that since the first night, he admitted. When you took that bread and looked at me like I was the first kind thing you'd seen in months. Maybe you were. Then I'm glad I found you. Glad that storm brought you to my door. He cupped her face in his hands. I love you, Sarah Tanner. I know it's too soon to say it. I know you probably ain't ready to hear it. But it's true, and I needed you to know. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. It's not too soon, she whispered. And I'm more ready than I thought. She kissed him again there on the porter's porch as the last light faded from the sky. And for the first time in 14 months, Sarah Jane Tanner wasn't running from anything. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. The ride home felt different. Sarah sat close to Jed on the wagon seat, their shoulders touching Lily asleep between them, with her head on Sarah's lap. The kiss on the porter's porch had changed something fundamental between them, broken down the last barrier that separated arrangement from marriage, strangers from family. Jed, Sarah said quietly, careful not to wake Lily. What happens now? Now we go home, put Lily to bed, figure out the rest in the morning. That's not what I meant. He glanced at her, and even in the fading light, she could see the question in his eyes. What did you mean, us, this? She gestured between them. I said I wanted this marriage to be real. I meant it. But I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to be a wife not the way you deserve. Jed was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Sarah, I ain't looking for a particular kind of wife. I'm looking for a partner. Someone to share the work and the worry and the good days when they come. He paused. I reckon we figure it out together. No expectations, no demands, just us. And if I make mistakes, then we fix 'em, together. Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time since Thomas died, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have something good without waiting for it to be taken away. They arrived home past midnight. Jed carried Lily inside while Sarah lit the lamps. The house felt different somehow, warmer, more alive, like it knew something had shifted. She stood in the middle of the main room, looking at the simple furniture and bare walls, and tried to imagine them as permanent, as home. Jed emerged from Lily's room, pulling the door halfway closed. She's out cold, won't wake till morning. Good. Sarah turned to face him. Jed, about tonight. You don't have to say anything. But I want to. She crossed to him, took his hands. When I married you, I told myself it was just for protection. Just to keep Lily safe. But somewhere along the way. She trailed off, searching for words. Somewhere along the way, he prompted gently. I started looking forward to coming home, to hearing your voice, to the way you are with Lily, patient and kind and present in a way her real father never was. Sarah's voice caught. I started falling in love with you, Jed Tanner, and it scared me to death. His hands tightened on hers. Why scared? Because every good thing I've ever had got taken away. Thomas, our home in Colorado, the life I thought I'd have. Tears burned her eyes. I kept waiting for you to be taken too, for this to all fall apart. It ain't falling apart. Jed pulled her close. Not now, not ever, I swear it. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in the scent of him, soap and leather, and something uniquely Jed. His arms wrapped around her, solid and warm and real. I love you, She whispered into his shirt. "I love you, and I'm tired of being scared to say it." "Then don't be." His lips pressed against her hair. "I got you, Sarah. I ain't letting go." That night, for the first time, Sarah didn't sleep alone. No demands, no expectations. Just Jed's arm around her waist, and his steady breathing in the darkness, and the profound relief of not being alone anymore. She fell asleep with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and for once, there were no nightmares. Morning came soft and golden. Sarah woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Lily's laughter from the kitchen. She lay still for a moment, disoriented, before memory flooded back. The trial. Silas in chains. The kiss on the porch. The night in Jed's arms. Real. All of it real. She found them in the kitchen, Jed at the stove, Lily perched on a chair beside him, helping crack eggs into a bowl. "Mama." Lily bounced off the chair and ran to Sarah. "Papa Jed's teaching me to make breakfast. I cracked 3 eggs and only got 1 shell in." "Only 1 shell." Sarah laughed, scooping her daughter up. "That's pretty good for your first try." "She's a natural," Jed said, glancing over his shoulder. His eyes met Sarah's, and something warm passed between them. "Morning." "Morning." The word felt different now. Fuller. Like it carried the weight of a promise. They ate breakfast together, eggs and bacon and biscuits that actually turned out light and fluffy instead of Jed's usual rocks. Lily chattered about horses and chickens and whether she could have a kitten, and Sarah listened with half her attention, while the other half marveled at the ordinariness of it all. This was what normal felt like. This was what she'd been running toward all along. After breakfast, while Lily played outside under Jed's watchful eye, Sarah started cleaning the house. Not because it was dirty, Jed kept it cleaner than most bachelors would, but because she needed to put her mark on it. Needed to transform it from his house into their home. She was scrubbing the kitchen table when she found the photograph. It had fallen behind the flour tin, probably knocked there during one of Lily's more enthusiastic cooking attempts. Sarah picked it up carefully, wiping flour dust from the glass. A young woman looked back at her. Dark hair, kind eyes, a gentle smile. Rebecca, Jed's first wife. Sarah stared at the photograph for a long moment. She'd seen it before, the one on the mantel, but this was different. A smaller version worn at the edges, like it had been carried in a pocket for years. "Found that, did you?" She spun. Jed stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry. It fell behind the tin. I wasn't snooping." "I know." He crossed to her, taking the photograph gently from her hands. "Carried this all through the war. Only thing I had of her when I came home and found—" He stopped. Swallowed. "Found she was gone. You must have loved her very much." "I did." His voice was quiet but steady. "She was my whole world for 5 years. When she died, I thought I'd die too. Wished I would for a while." Sarah's throat tightened. "Jed, you don't have to." "I do." He set the photograph on the table facing them both. "I loved Rebecca. Part of me always will. But Sarah—" He took her hands. "Loving you ain't a betrayal of her. Took me a long time to understand that. She'd want me to be happy. She'd want this house full of life again." His eyes glistened. "She'd love Lily. I know she would. I wish I could have met her. In a way you have. Everything good I am, everything worth anything she taught me." He cupped Sarah's face in his hands. "And now I get to share it with you. With our daughter. That ain't forgetting her. That's honoring her." Sarah leaned into his touch. "What do you want to do with the photograph?" Jed considered. "Put it on the mantel, next to our wedding papers. Let Lily see it if she asks." He paused. "She should know about Rebecca, about the baby we lost. It's part of who I am. Then we'll tell her. Together." He kissed her forehead, a gesture that had become as familiar as breathing. Together. A week passed. The ranch settled into new rhythms. Jed worked the cattle while Sarah managed the house. Lily split her time between them, learning to ride on a gentle old mare, Jed brought out of retirement, and helping Sarah in the garden, they'd started planning for spring. The neighbors came by regularly now, Samuel to help with fencing, Abigail with preserves and gossip, and the comfortable companionship of women who understood hard work. Others, too, the Hendersons' Pastor Matthews, even Sheriff Cole, who stopped by to report that Silas had been transported to St. Louis without incident. "He'll stand trial within the month," Cole said, accepting a cup of coffee at the kitchen table. "Embezzlement, fraud, theft. The bank investigators got enough evidence to put him away for years." "Good," Sarah said flatly. "I hope they throw away the key." "Might do just that. Judge Webb, the one who signed the original custody papers, is facing inquiry too. Seems Holloway wasn't the only palm he greased." Cole shook his head. "Whole thing's rotten from the root." "What about Lily's trust fund?" Jed asked. "The money Silas stole. Bank's working on recovery. Pembroke, the investigator, says they should be able to reclaim most of it. Might take time, but that money'll be there when Lily comes of age." Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thomas's legacy. Safe after everything. "There's one more thing," Cole added, his tone shifting. "A letter came for you, Mrs. Tanner. From a law firm in Denver." He handed her an envelope. Sarah stared at the return address, Patterson and Associates Attorneys at Law, with growing unease. "What is it?" Jed moved to her side. "I don't know." She broke the seal, pulled out the letter, and read it twice before the words made sense. "Sarah," Jed's voice was sharp now. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She looked up, stunned. "Thomas's father, Lily's grandfather, he died 6 months ago, before Silas filed for custody. His estate has been in probate, and now—" She shook her head in disbelief. "There's an inheritance, separate from the trust fund, for Lily and for me." "How much?" Sarah handed him the letter silently. Jed read it again, then looked at Sarah with an expression she couldn't decipher. This is a lot of money, Sarah." "I know. Enough to go anywhere. Do anything." His voice was careful, neutral. "You don't need me anymore. Not for protection. Not for—" "Stop." Sarah grabbed his arm. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. I'm just saying. I know what you're saying, and I don't want to hear it." She stepped closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I didn't marry you for money, Jed Tanner. I didn't stay for it either. This," she gestured at the letter, "doesn't change anything, not one single thing. But I love you. Lily loves you. This is our home now." Her voice cracked. "Please don't push us away just because I'm not desperate anymore." Something broke in Jed's expression. The careful neutrality crumbled, and beneath it, Sarah saw fear, raw naked. Fear that he'd been hiding since the letter appeared. "I ain't trying to push you away," he said roughly. "I'm trying to give you an out, in case you wanted one." "I don't want an out. I want you." She grabbed his face, made him look at her. "This money means Lily's future is secure. It means we can improve the ranch, build it into something that'll last for generations. It means I can contribute, really contribute to our life together." Her voice softened. "It doesn't mean I'm leaving." Jed's eyes searched hers. Whatever he found there must have convinced him, because his shoulders sagged with relief. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "Old fears, hard to shake." "I know about old fears." She kissed him gently. "We'll shake them together." Sheriff Cole cleared his throat awkwardly. "I should, probably be going." They'd forgotten he was there. Sarah stepped back, her cheeks flushing. "Thank you for bringing the letter, Sheriff." "Thank me by being happy," Cole said with a rare smile. "Lord knows you've earned it." That night, Lily asked about the photograph on the mantel. They were sitting together after supper. Jed in his chair, Sarah on the small sofa, Lily on the floor by the fire, playing with wooden blocks Jed had carved for her. "Papa Jed?" Lily looked up from her blocks. "Who's the lady in the picture?" Jed and Sarah exchanged glances. They'd talked about this, planned what to say. But now that the moment was here, Sarah saw Jed's throat work with emotion. "That's Rebecca," he said finally. "She was my wife, before your mama." Lily considered this with the seriousness of a child processing complicated information. "Did she go to heaven like my first papa?" "Yes, a long time ago." "Were you sad?" "Very sad, for a very long time." Jed's voice was rough. "But then I met you and your mama, and you helped me not be so sad anymore." Lily nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Do you think she's friends with my first papa?" "In heaven?" Sarah's heart clenched. Jed's eyes glistened. "I reckon she probably is," he managed. "Rebecca was real good at making friends." "Good." Lily went back to her blocks. "Then neither of them has to be lonely." The simplicity of it, the pure, uncomplicated logic of a child's heart broke something open in the room. Sarah saw Jed wipe his eyes with the back of his hand. She felt tears tracking down her own cheeks. "Lily," Sarah said softly, "come here." Lily climbed onto the sofa, settling between Sarah and Jed, who had moved to join them. They sat together, the three of them, while the fire crackled and the night deepened outside. "We're a real family now, right?" Lily asked sleepily. "Forever and ever." "Forever and ever," Sarah confirmed. "And nobody can take me away. Nobody." Jed's arm came around both of them. "You're stuck with us, little one." Lily smiled, her eyes drifting closed. "Good. I like being stuck with you." Within minutes, she was asleep. Sarah leaned her head on Jed's shoulder, looking down at their daughter, and marveling at how much had changed in such a short time. "I was so scared," she whispered, "for so long. Scared to stop running, scared to trust anyone, scared that if I let myself want something it would be taken away. And now I'm scared of different things." She smiled faintly. "Scared of teaching Lily wrong. Scared of not being a good enough wife. Scared of losing this. Because this is worth being scared of losing." Jed pressed a kiss to her hair. "Fear don't go away, Sarah. It just changes shape. But you don't have to carry it alone anymore." "I know." She turned her face into his neck. "That's what makes all the difference." 3 weeks later, a telegram arrived from St. Louis. Sarah was in the chicken coop collecting eggs when Samuel rode up with the news. She met Jed on the porch, her apron full of eggs, and her heart suddenly pounding. "It's from Pembroke," Jed said, scanning the telegram. "The investigator from the bank." "What does it say?" Jed read aloud. "Silas Holloway convicted on all counts. Sentenced 12 years state prison. No possibility early release. Judge Webb removed from bench. Full investigation ongoing. Trust fund recovered in entirety. Congratulations." The eggs dropped from Sarah's apron. She didn't notice, didn't care. Just stood there staring at Jed, the words echoing in her head. 12 years. No possibility early release. Full recovery. "It's over," she breathed. "It's really over. It's over." Jed's face split into a grin, real unguarded joy that she'd rarely seen from him. "He can't hurt you anymore. Not ever again." Sarah launched herself at him. He caught her, lifting her off the ground, spinning her once before setting her down and kissing her so thoroughly she forgot her own name. They were still kissing when Lily came running around the corner. "What happened? Why's Mama crying? Is it the bad man again?" Sarah dropped to her knees, pulling Lily close. "Happy tears, baby. These are happy tears." "Why?" "Because Uncle Silas is going to prison, for a very long time, and he can never ever bother us again." Lily's face lit up. "Really, forever? Forever? Then can I have a kitten now?" Sarah laughed, bright, joyful, free. "Yes, baby, you can have a kitten. And a pony. Let's start with the kitten." That evening they celebrated. The Porters came and the Hendersons and half the town, it seemed. Someone brought a fiddle. Someone else brought whiskey. They pushed the furniture against the walls and danced until their feet ached, and Sarah laughed more in one night than she had in the entire 14 months of running. Late in the evening, when the crowd had thinned and Lily had fallen asleep in Abigail's lap, Jed pulled Sarah outside. "Dance with me?" he said. "We've been dancing all night." "Not like this." He took her in his arms and they swayed together under the stars. No music, no audience, just the two of them and the vast Texas sky. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "For what?" "For finding me. For saving me. For giving me and Lily a home." Her voice caught. "For loving us when you didn't have to." "I didn't do any of that." Jed pulled back to look at her. "You saved yourself, Sarah. You ran for 14 months to keep your daughter safe. You made the decision to trust me when you had every reason not to. You built this family right alongside me." His thumb traced her cheek. "I just provided the roof. You provided everything else." "That's not true." "It is true." He kissed her softly. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." Sarah buried her face in his chest. "I love you, Jed Tanner." "I love you too, Sarah Tanner." He held her tight. "Forever and ever. Just like we promised Lily." They stood together under the stars, and Sarah felt something settle in her chest, a peace so profound it almost hurt. The running was over. The fear was fading. And in its place, something new was growing. Something that felt like hope, and tasted like home, and sounded like Lily's laughter, and looked like Jed's smile. Something that felt a whole lot like forever. A month later, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. She'd suspected for weeks the queasiness in the mornings, the exhaustion that hit without warning, the strange cravings for pickles and honey. But she'd been afraid to hope, afraid to believe that something so wonderful could happen after everything she'd been through. But the signs were unmistakable now, and she had to tell Jed. She found him in the barn brushing down his horse after a long day checking the herd. He looked up when she entered, his face creasing into that soft smile he seemed to reserve just for her. "Hey, thought you were resting." "I was, but I need to tell you something." Something in her tone made him set down the brush. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Sarah crossed to him, took his hands. "Jed, I'm going to have a baby." He went still, completely, utterly still. "Jed." Sarah's voice wavered. "Say something, please." "A baby," he repeated, like he was testing the word. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "A baby." His voice cracked. "Our baby." "Yes." And then, Jed Tanner, the stoic, steady, unshakable man, who'd faced down Silas Holloway without flinching, burst into tears. He swept Sarah into his arms, burying his face in her neck, his shoulders shaking with sobs. She held him, stroking his hair, her own eyes streaming. "I never thought," he managed between breaths. "After Rebecca, after losing, I never thought I'd get another chance. You're getting it." Sarah pulled back, cupping his wet face. "We're getting it. Together. I'm gonna be a father." Wonder crept into his voice. "A real father." "You're already a real father. To Lily. This baby will just make it more official." Jed laughed, a broken, joyful sound. "Lily's gonna be a big sister. Lord help us all." They told Lily that night. She listened with wide eyes as Sarah explained about babies and growing bellies and the new brother or sister who would arrive in the spring. "Will it be a girl baby or a boy baby?" Lily asked. "We won't know until it gets here." Lily considered this. "I want a sister. Boys are smelly." "How do you know boys are smelly?" "The Henderson boys are smelly. I smelled them at church." Lily wrinkled her nose. "A sister would be better." "Well, we'll love it either way, smelly or not." Lily nodded seriously. "Okay, but I get to name it." "We'll discuss it. I want to name it Buttercup, like the horse." "We'll definitely discuss it." Later, after Lily was asleep, Sarah lay in bed with Jed's hand resting on her still, flat stomach. "You scared?" he asked quietly. "Terrified." "Me too." Sarah turned to look at him. You are... Last time. He stopped. Started again. Rebecca and we were so happy about the baby, made plans, picked out names, and then I left for the war, and when I came back... His voice trailed off. I couldn't protect them, couldn't be there when they needed me. You're here now. I know, but the fear don't care about logic. He shifted closer. What if something goes wrong? What if I lose you both? You won't. You can't know that. No, Sarah admitted. But I know this. I survived 14 months on the run with a sick child. I survived Silas. I survived everything that tried to break me. She took his hand, pressed it harder against her stomach. I'm not easy to lose, Jed Tanner. And neither is this baby. He exhaled slowly. I'll be there. Every step. Whatever you need. I know you will. And if you get scared, I'll tell you. Promise. Promise. He kissed her forehead, that familiar tender gesture that had become her anchor. We're really doing this. Building a life. Growing a family. Seems that way. It's more than I ever hoped for. His voice was rough. More than I ever deserved. Stop that. Sarah poked his chest. You deserve everything good that comes your way. Don't you dare forget it. Jed smiled, that slow, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. Yes, ma'am. They lay together in the darkness, and Sarah let herself dream. Of spring and new beginnings. Of a baby in her arms, and Lily helping with feedings. Of Jed teaching their children to ride, and the ranch growing strong and prosperous. Of forever stretching out before them like the endless Texas sky. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Sarah Jane Tanner wasn't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. She was ready for it. The months that followed were the happiest of Sarah's life. Her belly grew round with the baby, while the ranch grew prosperous around them. Jed expanded the herd with the money from Thomas's father's inheritance, hiring 2 more hands to help with the work. Sarah planted the garden she'd been dreaming of, and Lily helped tend the vegetables with the fierce dedication of a child who'd finally found her place in the world. Mama, the tomatoes are getting fat, Lily announced one morning, bursting through the kitchen door. Papa Jed says they'll be ready to pick by next week. Sarah looked up from the bread she was kneading, one hand pressed to the small of her aching back. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Are you okay? Lily's face creased with concern. You look tired. Just the baby making itself known, Sarah smiled. It likes to kick when I'm trying to work. Lily crossed to her mother and placed a small hand on Sarah's belly. Her eyes went wide when she felt the movement beneath her palm. It's really in there, she breathed. It's really real. Very real, and getting bigger every day. When's it coming out? Soon, another month maybe. Lily's face scrunched. That's forever. It'll go faster than you think. Sarah brushed flour from her hands and pulled Lily close. You ready to be a big sister? I've been practicing. Lily nodded solemnly. I've been teaching the barn cats to follow instructions. If I can train cats, I can definitely train a baby. Sarah bit back a laugh. Babies are a little different from cats, sweetheart. I know, they're louder. Lily sighed dramatically. Mrs. Abigail told me. She said babies cry a lot and need to eat every few hours, and they don't sleep when you want them to. Her small face was grave. It sounds exhausting. It is, but it's worth it. That's what Papa Jed says too. Lily leaned against Sarah's side. He says the best things are always worth the hard work. Papa Jed's a smart man. I know, Lily grinned. That's why I picked him. The door opened, and Jed came in, stamping mud from his boots. His eyes found Sarah immediately, the way they always did, now checking, confirming, making sure she was all right. How's my favorite girl? He asked Lily, scooping her up. I'm your only girl, Lily giggled. Mama doesn't count because she's a woman. Fair point. Jed set her down and crossed to Sarah, pressing a kiss to her forehead. How's my favorite woman? Fat, tired, ready for this baby to arrive. Doc says another month. Doc can say whatever he wants. This baby's coming when it's good and ready, and I don't think it's planning to wait. Jed's hand came to rest on her belly. The baby kicked against his palm, and his face softened with that look of wonder that still hadn't faded. Strong one, he murmured. Takes after its father. Which one? The question caught Sarah off guard. She looked at Jed, saw the vulnerability he was trying to hide. You, she said firmly. You're its father, the only one that matters. Something eased in his expression. I love you, Sarah Tanner. I love you too. She covered his hand with hers. Now help me finish this bread before I collapse. The letter arrived 3 weeks later. Sarah was resting on the porch doctor's orders when Samuel Porter rode up with the mail. His face was troubled in a way that made Sarah's stomach clench. What is it? She asked, pushing herself upright. Letter from St. Louis. Samuel handed it over reluctantly. From Silas Holloway. The world tilted. He's in prison. Sarah said, her voice strange in her own ears. He can't. Prisoners can write letters, Sarah. Ain't illegal. Samuel's jaw tightened. You want me to burn it? You don't have to read it. Sarah stared at the envelope. Her name was written in Silas's neat, precise handwriting, the same hand that had signed the guardianship papers, the same hand that had reached for her in the courtroom. No, she heard herself say. I need to know what it says. She broke the seal with trembling fingers. The letter was short, 3 paragraphs, but each word hit like a physical blow. Sarah Jane. I have had much time to think during my incarceration. I have come to certain realizations about my actions and their consequences. You may find this difficult to believe, but I am not the monster you think me to be. Thomas was my brother. I loved him. When he died, something in me broke. The money, yes, I needed it. But that was not the only reason I pursued Lily. She was all I had left of him, the last piece of my family. I thought if I could have her, I could somehow have him back. I was wrong. I know that now. I am not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I am asking you to understand that my hatred was never for you. It was for myself, for what I had become. Silas Holloway. Sarah read it twice, 3 times. Then she set it down and stared at nothing. Sarah, Jed's voice. He was beside her, suddenly having emerged from the barn at the sight of Samuel's horse. What happened? What's wrong? She handed him the letter without speaking. He read it, his face going through a series of expressions, anger, confusion, and finally something that looked almost like pity. He's trying to manipulate you, Jed said flatly. Make himself the victim. Maybe. There's no maybe about it. This is what men like him do. They twist words until black looks white. I know. Sarah took the letter back, folding it carefully. But Jed, what if some of it's true? What if part of him really did just miss his brother? Does it matter? He still tried to take Lily, still terrorized you for 14 months, still stole from his own niece. Jed's voice was hard. A sad story don't excuse evil actions. No, it doesn't. Sarah tucked the letter into her pocket. But it might explain them. You're not thinking of writing back. No. She met his eyes. I'm thinking about how close I came to becoming like him. Bitter. Broken. Willing to do anything to hold on to what I loved. She touched her belly. Fear makes monsters of us all, Jed. I was lucky enough to find a way out. Maybe Silas never did. Jed was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're a better person than me, Sarah Tanner. No, I just had someone who refused to give up on me. She reached for his hand. Even when I was giving up on myself. That night, Sarah burned the letter. She stood at the stove watching the paper curl and blacken and felt something inside her finally let go. Not forgiveness, Silas didn't deserve that. But release. The last chain that connected her to her old life, her old fears crumbling to ash. "What was that?" Lily asked sleepily from her doorway. "Just old paper, nothing important." Sarah crossed to her daughter, smoothing her hair. "Go back to bed, sweetheart." "Is the baby coming?" "Not yet, soon. I had a dream about it." Lily's eyes were heavy. It was a boy. He had Papa Jed's eyes. Sarah's throat tightened. "That sounds like a nice dream." "It was." Lily yawned. "I taught him to ride a horse. He was really good at it." "I'm sure he will be. Now sleep." She tucked Lily back into bed and stood for a moment watching her daughter's face relax into peaceful slumber. This child who had survived so much, who had learned to trust again, who called Jed Papa with complete confidence and looked at Sarah like she hung the moon. They had done this. Together. Built a family from broken pieces. Found love in the wreckage of loss. And now there would be one more. The baby came 2 weeks early. Sarah woke in the gray light of dawn with a pain that stole her breath. She gripped Jed's arm hard enough to leave bruises. "Jed. Jed, wake up." He was alert instantly. "What is it? What's wrong?" "The baby," she gasped. "It's coming. Now." Everything after that was a blur. Jed sent one of the ranch hands racing for the doctor. Another went to fetch Abigail. Sarah gripped the bedpost, breathing through contractions that came faster and harder than anything she remembered from Lily's birth. "Too fast," she panted. "It's happening too fast." "You're doing fine." Abigail's voice calm and steady. She'd arrived before the doctor, thank God. "I've delivered more babies than I can count. We're going to get through this." "Where's Jed?" "Right outside the door. Pacing a hole in the floor from the sound of it." "I want him here." "Sarah." "I want him here." She grabbed Abigail's arm. "Please." Abigail hesitated, then nodded. "Jed, get in here. Your wife's asking for you." The door flew open. Jed's face was pale, his eyes wild. "Is she okay? Is the baby?" "We're both fine." Sarah managed between contractions. "Just need you to hold my hand." He crossed to her in 2 strides, taking her hand in both of his. "I'm here. I'm right here. Don't leave. Never." The labor was fast and brutal. Sarah had never experienced anything like it. Pain that crested and broke like waves in a storm, leaving her gasping and shaking in the brief spaces between. She gripped Jed's hand until her knuckles went white, and he never flinched, never pulled away, just held on like he was anchoring her to the earth. "Almost there," Abigail said. "I can see the head. One more push, Sarah. Give me everything you've got." Sarah screamed, pushed, felt her body split apart and come back together, and then a cry. Thin and reedy at first, then growing stronger, the sound of new life demanding its place in the world. "It's a boy," Abigail said, her voice thick with emotion. "A healthy, perfect boy." Sarah collapsed against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. Jed was crying too openly, unashamedly, his shoulders shaking with sobs. Abigail placed the baby in Sarah's arms. He was red-faced and wrinkled, and the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. His eyes were squeezed shut, his tiny fists waving in the air, his mouth open in protest at the indignity of being born. "Hello," Sarah whispered. "Hello, little one." Jed leaned close, one arm around Sarah, the other reaching out to touch the baby's cheek with infinite gentleness. "Our son," he breathed. "Our son. What are we going to name him?" Jed was quiet for a moment. Then, "William, for your first husband, the man who gave us Lily." Sarah's breath caught. "You'd do that? He was a good man. Lily loved him. He deserves to be remembered." Jed pressed a kiss to her temple. "And Jedediah for the middle name. so he carries both his fathers with him. William Jedediah Tanner. Sarah tested the name. It's perfect. The door cracked open and Lily's face appeared. Can I come in? Can I see the baby? Come here, sweetheart. Lily approached the bed slowly, her eyes huge. She peered at the bundle in Sarah's arms with an expression of awe and slight disappointment. He's very small, she observed, and wrinkly. He'll get bigger. He's also a boy. I wanted a sister. Sorry about that. Lily considered her new brother for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched his tiny hand. His fingers curled around hers automatically, and something shifted in her face. Okay, she said decisively. I guess he can stay. Sarah laughed through her tears. Thank you for your approval. You're welcome. Lily climbed onto the bed, careful not to jostle the baby. What's his name? William, after your first papa. Lily's eyes widened. Really? Really? Papa Jed suggested it. Lily turned to look at Jed, and her expression was so full of love that Sarah felt her heart crack open. Thank you, Papa Jed. You're welcome, little one. Jed's voice was rough. Now you got two brothers, one in heaven and one here. Like I have two papas? Exactly like that. Lily nodded solemnly, then turned back to the baby. Hi, William. I'm your big sister Lily. I'm going to teach you everything. Like how to ride horses and feed chickens and find the best rocks by the creek. She paused. And I'll make sure nobody is ever mean to you. Ever. Sarah pulled her daughter close with one arm, holding her son with the other, while Jed wrapped himself around all three of them. They stayed like that for a long time, tangled together, the four of them finally complete. The weeks after William's birth were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. The baby ate every 3 hours, day and night. Sarah walked around in a fog of sleep deprivation, sustained by coffee and Jed's steady support. Lily took her role as big sister, seriously helping with everything from diaper changes to lullabies. He stopped crying, she announced proudly one evening, emerging from the baby's room. I sang the horse song 3 times, and he finally went to sleep. You're a natural, Jed said, scooping her up. Best big sister in all of Texas. I know, Lily grinned. Maybe all of America. Don't get cocky. But beneath the exhaustion, Sarah felt a contentment so deep it bordered on disbelief. This was her life now. This house. This family, this love. Not something borrowed or temporary. Something permanent. Something real. One evening, while William slept in his cradle and Lily played quietly with her wooden blocks, Sarah and Jed sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the prairie gold. I've been thinking, Jed said quietly. About what? About that night. The storm. Finding you and Lily by the wagon. That seems like a lifetime ago. It was. A different life. He turned to look at her. If I'd ridden a different direction that day, if I'd stayed home or taken the south pasture instead of the east. Don't. Sarah took his hand. Don't think about what-ifs. I can't help it sometimes, thinking about how close I came to missing you entirely, to spending the rest of my life alone in this house, never knowing what I was missing. But you didn't miss us. You found us. She squeezed his fingers. Some things are meant to be, Jed. I have to believe that. After everything we've been through, we were supposed to find each other. You believe in fate. I believe in this. She gestured between them toward the house where their children slept. I believe in us. Whatever force brought us together, fate, God, pure dumb luck, I'm grateful for it. Every single day. Jed raised her hand to his lips. I used to think my life ended when Rebecca died, that everything after was just waiting, filling time until I could join her. And now I know I was waiting for something, just not what I thought. He met her eyes. I was waiting for you, Sarah, for Lily, for William, for a family I didn't know I needed. You didn't find us, Sarah said softly. We found each other. Same thing. Not quite. She shifted closer, leaning her head on his shoulder. You could have left us there, in the storm. It would have been easier, safer. Nobody would have blamed you. I would have blamed me. I know. That's who you are. She pressed a kiss to his jaw. That's why I love you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the colors fade from the sky. The evening star appeared bright and steady, and somewhere in the house William stirred and began to fuss. I'll get him, Jed said, standing. You don't have to. I want to. He smiled, that soft, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. That's my son in there. I've waited a long time to say those words. He disappeared inside, and a moment later Sarah heard his voice, low and soothing, calming the baby. Then Lily's voice joined in, singing one of her made-up lullabies, and Jed's quiet laugh at something she said. Her family. Hers. Sarah pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat steady and strong. 14 months ago, she'd been running for her life, convinced she'd never stop, convinced she'd never be safe again. Now she was sitting on her own porch, watching the stars come out, while the people she loved more than anything filled her home with light and sound and life. How had this happened? How had she gotten so lucky? But it wasn't luck, not really. It was choice. 100 small choices made in fear and hope and desperation that had somehow led her here. The choice to run. The choice to trust a stranger in a storm. The choice to say yes when Jed offered protection. The choice to let herself fall in love. Every choice had been terrifying. Every choice could have led to disaster. But she'd made them anyway, because the alternative, giving up, giving in, letting fear win, was worse than any risk. And now, because of those choices, she had everything. The door opened, and Jed emerged with William cradled against his chest. The baby had quieted, his eyes half closed, one tiny fist wrapped around Jed's finger. He's getting big, Jed said, settling back into his chair. Doc says he's healthy as a horse. He's got your stubbornness. And your eyes. Poor kid. Sarah laughed. My eyes are fine. They're beautiful. Jed glanced at her. Everything about you is beautiful. Flatterer. Truth-teller. He shifted William in his arms. I never said thank you, you know. For what? For saying yes. That day on the porch when I offered you marriage. You could have said no. Should have, probably. I was a stranger asking you to trust me with everything you had. You weren't asking for trust. You were offering shelter. There's a difference. Still, you took a chance. On me. On this place. He looked down at William. On us. Best chance I ever took. Lily appeared in the doorway, her nightgown trailing on the ground. Mama, Papa, Jed. I can't sleep. Come here, sweetheart. Lily crossed to the porch and climbed into Sarah's lap, already heavy with sleepiness. She leaned her head against Sarah's chest, her eyes drifting toward her brother. He's still awake, she observed. Babies don't sleep much at first. Remember how we talked about that? I remember. Lily yawned. I'm glad I'm not a baby anymore. Sleeping is my favorite. Then close your eyes. Will you sing the song? The one about the river. Sarah began to hum the old lullaby, the one her mother had sung to her, the one she'd sung to Lily through all those desperate months on the run. It felt different now, softer, more hopeful, like the words had finally found the home they'd been searching for. By the time she finished, Lily was asleep. Jed stood carefully still, holding William. I'll put them to bed. Together. She likes being near him. Says he makes her feel important. She is important. I know. But it's good for her to feel it. He carried both children inside, and Sarah stayed on the porch listening to his footsteps, his low voice murmuring reassurances, the creak of bed springs as he settled them in. This was her life now. This ordinary, extraordinary life. full of mundane tasks and small joys, and a love so big it sometimes felt like it might overflow. Jed returned and held out his hand. "Come to bed." Sarah took it, letting him pull her to her feet. They stood together for a moment, looking out at the dark prairie, the vast sky full of stars. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong," Sarah admitted. "For the other shoe to drop. For this to be taken away like everything else." "Some things can't be taken." Jed's arm came around her waist. "Some things we hold on to so tight, nothing in the world can pry them loose." "Is that what we're doing, holding on?" "That's exactly what we're doing." He turned her to face him. "And we're never letting go." She kissed him, then slow and deep, and full of promise. The kiss of a woman who had finally stopped running and started living. The kiss of a wife to her husband, a mother to her children's father, a survivor to the man who had saved her. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, Jed rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Sarah Tanner." "I love you too, Jed Tanner. Forever." She thought about forever, about the years stretching ahead of them, years of hard work and small triumphs of children growing and seasons changing of ordinary days, piled one on top of another, until they became an extraordinary life. "Forever," she confirmed, "and then some." They walked inside together, closing the door on the night. The widow who had whispered, "We haven't eaten in 5 days," had found more than bread. She had found a name worth carrying, a man worth loving, and a home worth every mile she had run to reach it. The running was over. The waiting was done. Sarah Jane Tanner was finally completely, absolutely home.